Merry Christmas, Super Coaches. It might not be December 25 yet, but it might as well be. We've got some goodies. The positions for 2025 have dropped. We've got 94 new DPPs. The draft has been and gone, which means the rookie Bible for 2025 is imminent as well. We've got plenty to discuss. This is the Phantom speaking back on the official AFL Supercoach podcast for the first time. A big crew. Now, it's usually a big crew on this show, but this is different. This is a big show. We've got some big names as well. Phantom Jr., Dossie, Merry Christmas. Welcome back.
Thank you. Exciting times. We have these DPPs. Yeah, looked forward to. The draft was amazing last week as well. So plenty to discuss. Supercoach has really officially started. I know we were starting to talk about it already a couple of weeks ago, but now it feels like it's getting closer.
Yeah, and we've got Santa Claus on the show. Saint Nick, Father Christmas, Father Supercoach Christmas. Our Paton over there at the Herald Sun. The big sack of presents is looking pretty big, Al.
Might just be the white hair, but yes, thank you, Phantom. Great to be back with some great names here in Supercoach. The other thing, of course, we can discuss a little bit later on is the fixtures drop too for next year. So opening round is back. I know we're all hanging out for that, but yeah, a few little tasty morsels. I think the AFL has actually done us a few favours when it comes to some of those bye rounds as well.
Indeed, plenty to talk about. I mentioned the Rookie Bible, won't be far away. The draft, we always look at the draft closely. The cash cows, the backbone of any good Supercoach team are the kids. And no one, Dossie, knows them better than our man over there at the Herald Sun, our draft guru, can play Supercoach as well, has a good finish in his history. Dan Batten.
A couple of good finishes in my history. I think I had a couple of top 1,000 finishes. Not quite last year. I dropped quicker than Dossie last year.
That's quick.
But looking forward to jumping on the podcast. I'm not a big Christmas guy. I'm a bit of a Grinch, but when it comes to Supercoach time, hopefully I can provide a few goodies. I'm a bit more passionate about that sort of things.
Now, we're going to go through the names to watch for next year, but should Supercoaches be excited about this crop?
I think so, yes, in short. There was a few mature ages late in the piece as well, but we don't love spending up for rookies, but I think there's definitely a few that will appeal, particularly in that sort of top 10 to 15 range. We know a few of them, but yeah, looking forward to chatting a bit more about some of the names we should probably put on our radars.
Can't wait to get stuck into it. And Al, of course, your Tig's very prominent in the rookie fixture this year. But speaking of fixtures, we do want to touch on that at the end as well. Another part of the Supercoach landscape revealed recently. The
4
fixtures,
bye rounds.
Yes. So lots to talk about. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. Kick it off with our DPPs, but always remember this season it's going to look a little bit different on the podcast front. Also on the YouTube. If you are watching, you can follow along on Code Sports. Make sure you go subscribe there. You can get all your Supercoach content on Code Sports on the YouTube channel. Also, of course, still available in your earbuds as well. Spotify, Apple, wherever you're going, listening to your audio platforms, go subscribe over there and give us some love with a 5-star rating as well to make sure we can give you the best content this season. But should we get stuck into some DPPs, fans?
I think we should fan them on YouTube too, maybe. Is that right?
That's correct.
Jeez. Yeah. Let's open that big giant sack of Supercoach goodies. The positions for 2025 have landed in your inbox. Where should we start?
Well, I think the real Father Christmas is Luke Beveridge. We know he has copped it a bit from Supercoaches over the journey, but we have to thank Bevo for what he's done for us with some of the positions, some of the players we're going to be able to pick next year, particularly in our forward lines. Now, they're not the Bulldogs anymore, but maybe some tinkering that Bevo has done over the years, certainly in the last 12 months or so, has really helped the fact that next year, Bailey Smith, obviously now at the Cats, will be a forward mid. Caleb Daniel is a forward mid. We know he played in defence when he won premierships and made all Australian teams for the Dogs, but he's at the Kangaroos now, will be a forward mid. And Jack Macrae, unbelievably, this is probably the one that had me falling off my chair, is a forward only. So he doesn't even get DPP, poor old Jack Macrae. He's been stuck in a forward pocket by Bevo, but now he's over at the Saints. You'd think surely straight back into the centre square, and all of these guys are going to be really favourably priced. We'll see the prices pretty soon as well. So I reckon there's 3 just about locks for our forward line, all those ex-Dogs straight into my Supercoach team.
So we started last year with no forwards, and this year we've got too many just about. There's plenty more DPPs with the forward status as well. Which one to you jumped out, Fance, as your favourite of the bunch?
He's our man over here. Now, everyone knows I like Caleb Daniel. He's going to be very well priced. What did he average last year? Not much. He's going to be priced at that. We've known what he can do and what sort of Supercoach heights he can hit. So definitely an early lock in the forward line. But one guy's jumped above him. Jack Macrae, yep, ours mentioned him. But our man over here, the horny one, Jason Horne-Francis, midfielder forward. We talked about him a lot on the Lair, a lot on the official Supercoach AFL podcast last year. Pick him as a mid only. I think you and I both jumped on him, a mid forward for next year. I like it.
Yeah, we both jumped on at some stage. Not sure if you guys did over there across the seas and Melbourne over there, Al and Dan.
Just hold out until we can actually get him as a forward.
Well, yeah, we thought we were going to, but yes, I'm all aboard Jason Horne-Francis. I have to remember what his average was though, because it would have ended the season pretty high. But yeah, all these names are incredibly exciting from Supercoach perspective. As we said, there was only a couple of real major locks last year, but I think we might have to be starting to think about our teams to build around these forwards this time, when the game does open.
If we're rounding up, he averaged 100, three figures for the first time in his career. I think 99.7. We like to round up over here, Batten. But we've seen him go so big, and we've been tempted before, what happened last year. Goes big, then can't maintain that consistently. Eventually, at some point, he's going to, which is going to be big for the power. It's going to be big for super coaches too. But as a forward, he doesn't even need to. He takes a little step on last year, puts it together a little bit more consistently than last year. Then he's a top 3 forward, you'd think.
I think it's just going to be tough to start with him at that stage. Maybe wait for the price to drop a bit potentially, but. Let's look at some of these other names because this is why, and I think there's just so much value. We've already spoken about Macrae, who I think personally is the biggest lock out of these forward DPPs, and he's not even a DPP; he's just a pure forward.
Has he still got it?
Yes, he's still got it. He's just not gotten the chance to play in the inside. I think he'll be straight in there midfield. We've talking about. I think it's been talked about a lot in the offseason about how the Saints don't really have a midfield, so Jack Macrae slots straight into there. Dan, I want your thoughts, though, on another St Kilda player with forward status next year. We were talking about him late last year. Injured towards the end of the year, though, so probably wasn't in a lot of teams to finish the year. But Matthias Philippou coming in with the forward mid status, another player, St Kilda, likely to see plenty of midfield time next year.
He wasn't in many teams, but he was in my team at the end of last year, and he had a couple of quite good games, and then just like the rest of my team, he fell in a heap and got injured. But there was a lot of potential there. Like he was getting 75 or so percent midfield time CBAs for the Saints, and I think that's only going to improve. Like you look at their current midfield mix, look at who they got at the draft. They didn't go and get any midfielders. Travalia could be a midfielder in time, but he's probably going to start off half back. Does that potentially push Jack Sinclair there? Who knows? But I think Philippou, after that second half of the season, surely is going to be looking at some more midfield time. And he only averaged 58 last year, which means he's probably at about, maybe around between 250 and 300K starting price. So I do like that price. I will say on the horny one, I think he's probably going to be F1 in my team, yep. I'd say. Even if he has a worse year than last year, which is unlikely, you'd think, he's going to average 95. So you lock that in every day of the week. He's not going to be ridiculously expensive. Like as Phantom said, rounding up, it's 100. So it's probably about 550 or so K. I think you can definitely swing that, even though there are so many other quality cheap options. When you got a Bailey Smith, who's also probably about 400K as well, who Max Holmes said was training the house down today to quote kick it forward.
You were down there, Dan. Did you see Bailey Smith in action?
Well, I did see him walk past me in the cafe. He hasn't actually been out on the track just yet. He will. I'll be there to provide all the track watch from next week when he's actually.
But he's still training the house down. So that's how well he's
training the house down from inside GMHBA Stadium. So, but yeah, a few have ranted and raved about just how dedicated he is, and he's at full fitness. So he's another one I think I'll be starting at this stage, pending an injury setback.
Already building those teams, all of us here, getting excited for the Supercoach season. I just want to touch on a couple more just players that change colours in the off-season here, just to round out, because I did kind of tier these, and our first little group here is the tier that I was probably most interested in looking at next year, and they're all surprisingly, and not surprisingly perhaps, all forwards. Liam Baker coming across, look, as a West Coast fan myself, was quite upset with the initial move, and we're going to be talking about probably the best rookie of the draft class in the Supercoach later on, who we traded him for. Liam Baker, forward mid. Al, you're the Tigers, man. What can we expect out of him in West Coast colours this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. I guess he's got Mini McQualter over there. It might be worth going back and doing some research into where Baker played when McQualter was coaching the Tigers in that little stint that he had, because the issue, has always shown that he can score, but he's just been thrown all over the ground, plugging holes, and he's been fantastic at that. You can chuck him in a forward pocket, play a defensive forward role, or play off halfback, or chuck him through the midfield. So if we see that he actually settles somewhere, then that'd give us a bit of a clearer indication as to what he's going to do for us. But again, I see another name you've got on this list, Luke Parker. They're not going to be super cheap. Like when we, like a Bailey Smith, it's going to be ridiculous how cheap he is, given that he just had a year out with injury. So would you pay an extra $100,000 for a Luke Parker or a Liam Baker type? Maybe not. But yeah, having their names there does pique your interest. And yeah, I mean, Parker sounds like talking the other day, he's going to play through the midfield and forward line at North, and yeah, we know how he's been able to score over his entire career. So definitely names we can put on the watch list for the preseason.
We know Baker would be on the hipsters watch list.
Yes.
Coach Hipster from the Lair doesn't mind a bit of Liam Baker, gets tempted, and as Al mentioned, we know he's moved around 45-51 the first two games last year, then went 140 in the third round. So again, it's very much a wait and see of what he does, as Al said, but could be too much value, but an interesting watch over summer.
Yeah, so many names. But I think the other point to look at is not just the players who have either gained or, that we have interest in on because of their price, but there's also some premiums that held DPP that we maybe didn't think were going to. Sam Flanders probably was on the radar for us.
He's held forward status.
As a defender mid, the dual position of mid defender. So he held a bit of defensive status, which is very nice. One of the most consistent Supercoach players last year. Jack Sinclair, def mid as well. One that surprised me, I will say, Max Holmes, defender mid. I thought he was probably just going to be pure mid given what he did towards the end of the season, but obviously the data backs up that he's been playing enough def, because I think at the end of the season it was actually a switch with Tom Stewart ended up playing mid and Holmes went back. So it's kind of, I think, flipped that around. Luke Jackson retaining forward ruck status was probably on the radar as well. But
Sean Darcy still playing?
Well, that's the thing. So
I was kind of hoping Jackson would just be forward only or ruck only, so we just didn't have to worry about him, because I had him in my team all last year. I mean, he provided some great cover at different stages, but then he was super frustrating, and you sort of thought, I can't get rid of him because you just need him there as that ruck insurance, which may have used it once during the whole season, but you'll have to see how that looks when we start to put our teams together next year, whether that's a viable play again.
What about Harry Sheezel? Is he still a defender?
Yeah, well, our friend Fantasy Freako tweeted that he missed out on DPP status by 0.2%. So basically played the first half of the year as a defender, and then the rest of the year he was sort of mid-forward. So he ended up, with a pretty even spread all over the ground. But he's listed for Supercoach as a defender only, even though we think he probably will play through the midfield. But he definitely showed he could score there. I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. So being able to pick him in defence, I mean, I think most of us had him last year as we liked the fact that he was DPP, but he really just sat in defence the whole year anyway, didn't he? So, I'd be happy to pick him there again. I suppose the other interesting one in a similar boat is Nick Daicos, who's now a mid only, which is, no surprise. We've sort of been very fortunate that we've been able to pick him in defence the first early stages of his career. But maybe when we get to some of the buys and fixture talk later on, will be an interesting one whether we go all in on Nick again to start with next year.
Can be a big call. Could be a big pod.
Yeah.
Dan's picking Jason Horne-Francis. We know he's a Nick Daicos truther from the draft days.
Yes.
Could Dan Batten have Jason Horne-Francis no Nick Daicos in his Supercoach team for 2025?
Nah, always going Nick Daicos over JHF. But I probably will have both, I reckon. Especially with all the forward options, you can afford to be a little bit cheaper there.
Yep.
Spend up in the midfield and in defence. So I really like Max Holmes as well as an option. As Dossie said, he sort of went from defence, midfield a lot throughout the season. He said today, press conference down in Geelong, that he's not that his preference is to play midfield, but he thinks he has more impact in the midfield. It'll be interesting to see what Chris Scott actually does with his magnet, especially with Bailey Smith coming into that mix as well. But we saw just how damaging he was during the final series. 152 Supercoach points against the Power over there. Absolutely put them to the sword in that qualifying final. And he was on track for another massive score in the prelim as well. Only ended up with the 75 points, but we know how that finished and just how many points would have been scored in that last quarter when he was off injured. He had 20 disposals and 9 inside 50s in about maybe 60% game time. So I really like him as an option as well. But yeah, Flanders and Sheezel, like him retaining defence, even though he doesn't have that midfield. I guess another draft truther there for in Harry Sheezel. But as a midfielder, he had so much impact and got better as the year went on. So I think he's another great pick there.
What about trade period? Anyone else popping up? We saw some interesting names change clubs in October. James Peatling, Isaac coming over here to play for the Crows, but some interesting names and some interesting DPP additions too.
I like both of those guys if they got DPP, but unfortunately neither. They're both mid only. I thought Cumming might come at a bit of a discount. Might get some kick-ins, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's going to be hard as a mid. I mean, I know there's some very big James Peatling fans out there, so maybe depending on his price, he still might want to take the punt. But yeah, probably makes it pretty hard for both of those guys.
Yeah, I'll go through a few of the final sort of batch. Obviously, there's stacks out there, especially draft coaches probably wondering every single one. You can obviously find all the numbers, Code Sports or your mastheads out there. So head to Code Sports and check out the full list written by the fans. And no, that was our
by Father Christmas.
By Father Christmas.
Our searchable list too. Very easy to scroll through. So definitely get on there, waste some time looking at every single position for 2025.
Now I'm going to go through the final presents here that I have found out of this list. Obviously, like I said, plenty more. Trent Rivers holding defender status after playing a fairly significant time in the midfield to end the year for the D's. Really like that. Def mid. Riley Sanders still a forward mid if he does end up getting a bit more midfield time, given the Dogs did lose a few midfielders in the off-season. That's probably the main ones forward. Now I'm just going to go through the single position ones that surprised me, maybe not as interested. Ed Richards lost defender status. So he was kind of a popular defender option moving into the midfield. Now only a pure mid. Callum Mills, defender status for the discounted
Dan's
stud.
man.
So
what's another news that we haven't mentioned? How about that dropping this morning?
Horse.
The horse.
So is that, do we think that might...
Do we finally get him?
Callum Mills,
finally got Horse, did we? Before we pushed him out.
You've been targeting him for years, fans.
Yeah, it'd be interesting what different things he rolls. Will Callum Mills go back to the midfield? He's now a pure defender. So a few other names, Dan Houston, pure defender. Harry Perryman, both at the Pies, defender. Hayden Young lost defensive status. He's a pure mid as expected. Matty Roberts, your man, fans, and a popular Supercoach option, defender only.
Number 3, I finished third in the time trial. The Swans kids return to pre-season, so hitting the ground running.
Well, you skipped over Dane Zorko. He's now a pure defender. And just a couple more names here. Jai Caldwell, popular forward option, moving just to pure mid. Christian Petrarca, injured, but still a pure mid there. One that I was tempted for a defender spot, not going to lie. I think with Dan Houston out, Jace Burgoyne might take a lift, but now he's mid only. Can't go there. It's draft only now. But
5 names. Simeon Kingsley, Thomas Wilson from the Lair wrote during the week. I think he spoke to Jace Burgoyne when Port returned to train that Jace wants to stay on the wing. We know he can win the footy there, but looks like he's going to stay on the wing, so maybe that opens up for someone else to go back and play that Dan Houston role. Speaking of that ball-winning defender, Colby McKercher, spoken about a lot on all shows last year, Dan and now. We back him in to take another step. Did we see enough in 2024?
Speaking of time trial wins, he's just gone and won the North time trial off a very limited preseason. John Ralph reporting there.
You could win the North time trial, Dan, I think.
Back in the day.
No, impressive.
I had a decent beep test back in the day, but not so much now. really gone downhill in that department. But yeah, I think Colby's a really fascinating one. The role is going to be a big watch as well, especially after drafting Sullivan. I don't think he plays right away as an inside midfielder, but he might potentially look to take one of those wing spots that we saw him move more into the midfield at times later in the season. But it's probably preferable to have him as that kick-in merchant, take that all those kick-ins off Zach Fisher. We know he uses the ball well and provides that run, but I think he had a desire to McKercher to go into the midfield more. So it'll be a bit of a watch to see if he can have that similar impact to, say, a Sheezel or a Daicos right away. I think at one stage he moved into the midfield early in the year, and that's when a lot of players traded him out because he wasn't scoring as well. But yeah, so I definitely one to add to the watch list.
Yeah, I think Sheezel and Daicos have sort of changed the rules a little bit about, you used to pick these top end rookies and then, enjoy them for a year and then you'd sort of wave them goodbye and then worry, pick them up maybe another couple of years down the track. You don't want to pick them up when they've just gone up to, 300-400 $400,000. But obviously, just sticking with Sheezel and Daicos has totally paid off. And if they're good enough, I wouldn't be discounting McKercher fitting into that bracket. And the other one, obviously, the biggest question for Dossie is, will you pick Harley Reid as a mid only?
Let's not ask Dossie.
That's a yes from me. That's a yes. No, I'll have to see how it shakes out. But I think he finished the season with just an 80 average, which that seems about 40 under for me for good Harley. No, but let's one final name to talk about.
We're brushing off Harley.
And I think
brushing off Harley.
He's a lock. I mean, that's a guarantee.
What do you think? Yeah, to pick him as a mid only.
Yeah, as a forward, I'd probably be thinking about it. Mid, maybe no, but yeah, I don't know. Like I just said, the rules don't quite apply the way they used to. So yeah, I wouldn't discount it.
I want to finish with another second-year player, to be honest, Al, and Adelaide.
I've just got a text message as well, so I've got one more. Just got a request.
Oh, okay. My last one is an Adelaide man. So, and the theme, bit of a split Vic Adelaide pod here, but Dan Curtin, forward status, pure forward status. Any interest here?
What will he be priced at?
Cheap.
Very cheap as last year.
Cheap.
We don't want him playing before. We want. It's all about what happens there. Obviously, he gets forward status. He plays a couple of games late in the year where he played predominantly as a forward and wasn't subbed out the game like earlier on in the year. So obviously, that forward positioning equates to what happens in 2025 with his SuperCoach position. But depends what Matthew Nicks does with Dan Curtin. Where does he fit in? Can he fit in straight away with the inclusions they've got coming in?
Is he the 197 centimetre mid, like some have projected him to be?
I think
finished with
eventually
seven games played at a 32.7 average last year. Just food for thought there for a pure forward status after last year holding defender mid and sort of coming into his own later in the season. We'll monitor that over here though and get back to you.
Now, I still got a message.
Yep.
From our man, the hipster, Matt Turner. One for you, Al. He says, what's Jack Carroll's position for 2025? The delisted and relisted Jack Carroll, the hipster's man.
He's at St Kilda now, isn't he?
Yep.
When we talk about they need midfielders, he's a forward mid.
Forward mid, DPP, Jack Carroll.
And another Jack as well, who's a forward mid.
Yeah, good point. So there's another favourite, the Saints.
Yeah.
Hipster's keen.
Well, he'll be cheap too. So, put him down in your list for the Rookie Bible when you put it together, you blokes.
Yep.
Speaking of Rookie Bible fans, I believe you and the man who's called himself the Beast from the East
the beast
on this chat, Dan Batten, you guys have, in fact, put together the first kind of iteration of the Rookie Bible following the draft.
It's the unofficial Rookie Bible. Dan looked at a few names that might have an impact next year from the draft class. You can get that shortly, again, on codesports.com.au and across all the masthead websites. We're going to speak about a few names. As we said before, the draftees become the SuperCoach cash cows of the following year and the backbone of any good SuperCoach team. But we might as well start with the beast. Dan's gone the beast from the east as his name, as Dossie mentioned. Who is the beast from the east?
Hey, you're looking right at him. It's Dan Batten. I'm from the eastern suburbs of Vermont, but no, of course, he's probably got another 20 kegs on me, and he's actually quick and good at footy. So this is Cody Anderson from the Hawthorn Next Generation Academy program. He played one VFL game this year, and it yielded a score of 86 SuperCoach points. So he's a big bullocking midfielder, hence the name. It's a bull at a gate, really. Averaged 6 tackles a game and 6 clearances in the Coates Talent League. And as I said, a very impressive VFL debut. Did have an injury-interrupted finish to the years, and he's not one of the top guys, but he has drawn comparisons to James Warple, just for the way he can win the footy and burst away. So he's one to watch a bit later in the draft. He was a later selection, so he's probably at 117K sort of mark. But yeah, just keep an eye out for the beast from the east.
That's what we like. The basement price tag, or almost basement price tag. We know the real basement is the rookie draft, but who do you like at the top end? We know you've been following the draft, or you've been following these kids at junior level. Who should we put on the early, not watch list, the lock list for rookies in 2025? Who are we picking from the draft?
The early lock list, I like it. I think I actually put out a video before the draft, and it was looking at some of the guys who probably we thought we were going to go to some clubs that were sort of locks there at the top. One of those was Jagga Smith at Carlton. I think he complements what Patrick Cripps and Sam Walsh have in the midfield perfectly. In his 3 VFL games, averaged 103 SuperCoach points, an absolute ball magnet in 2 consecutive games in the Coates Talent League. He had 50 disposals in one and had scored 239 SuperCoach, and then 40 the very next week. And I think a bit later in the season when he next played for the Oakley, he had 43. So, yeah, he is no trouble finding the footy. Don't let his slim build fool you. He's a really good pickup, I think, in SuperCoach. Number 3 picks obviously won't come cheap, but I think he's worth paying for. I think he's probably the one top end rookie to really put you in your sights. Obviously, we all know Levi Ashcroft as well. I think the role's a bit of a watch for him. He's probably got more forward craft than Will. He has no trouble finding the footy either, though. In his only VFL game for the year, he had over 30 disposals and kicked 2 goals, and one of them was from the boundary. So,
149 SuperCoach that day as well.
Yeah, took the P155 at all levels really in his draft year, and I guess the probably might be proved to be one of the gifts for SuperCoach is the fact that he did slide to pick 5, which means he's probably going to get a 15 to 20K discount on what he would have originally if he had been the number 1 pick, which is who I feel he was the number 1 talent, not by a huge margin, but the number 1 I felt across the draft class. So, yeah, there's a couple of the guys at the very top end, and I'll let you, Phantom, watching him a bit more closely. Another boy who isn't from Victoria, because obviously I only watch the Victorian talents, and same with SuperCoach, I only pick Victorian players apparently. So I'll let you discuss Sid Draper. It's
in character, Dossie. Write that down. He quoted said, Jagga Smith, the only one you need to look at out of the top group. Jagga's been playing against other under 18s, the kids, bottom ages, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds playing in the Coates League over there.
Besides his 3 VFL games where he averaged 100 as well and had 30 touches in every game. But
would you think, Dan, though, in all honesty, Bo Allen's better than him, right? Please tell me.
No, I think you have to add our man Sid Draper to the early lock list at this point. anyway. We know what the Crows lack in the midfield: speed, power, and a bit more explosiveness, and he brings that in spades. And played senior footy last year, dominated junior footy the year before that. We know he's a dual under-18 All-Australian, 147, 118, 119, 101, 106 in his first 5 sample senior matches this year. Was one of South's better players when he came into the side. So more than ready to go. The Crows have said he's ready to go. And I think he trained at the club over summer last year for a little bit of experience. They have the kids from couple of drafts time come out, and by all reports that his running and his GPS numbers impressed fitness guru Darren Burgess already at that point. So some good signs from Sid Draper. Fits in. Yes, maybe Dan mentioned that Jagga Smith is going to come in and play in the midfield straight away. Can Sid Draper play at half forward or high half forward like a Levi Ashcroft? Maybe. But I still think if we're looking at the early lock list, definitely put him on there for now.
I think he can slot in and play midfield right away, because you saw what he did at sample level. He was able to burst out of the centre square, and that's the Crows need that immediately. You look at their current midfield mix, and it's a bit same, a bit slow. You might even have Dan Curtin in there at 197 centimetres, just taking up all the space. But in all seriousness, I think that he is a very viable option. I had in the top 5 video we'd done before the draft, I actually did have him at number 5. The only question mark maybe is if he does start on a wing or off half forward or even off half back. But I think he has the traits certainly to be able to play in that midfield role right away. Someone else who's played a lot of VFL footy throughout his draft years is Leo Lombard from the Suns. I think he has the frame and speed to play right away. Played 11 VFL games this year. That included a very nice SuperCoach ton against Coburg, where he scored 120 points. The only question mark for him as well is whether he does play midfield right away with their very strong midfield group. But he was at about, I think, pick 9 in the end, his bids. So again, a little bit cheaper. And I'll let, speaking of another guy who's gone in and played some state league footy, Dossie, it's your time to shine. The number 1 pick, or who should have been the number 1 pick from the draft, the WA boy, the top WA talent in the draft.
Yeah, Bo, the great Bo Allen. But no, look, I need to. His waffle numbers didn't jump off the page. I think he only averaged around 50 in the waffle, which compared to some of these other guys who are playing, pure mid, it doesn't stand out. But in a West Coast team that desperately needs anyone to go out there and perform, I think job security is probably something that he will have quite early. Already playing against men. Bo Allen's definitely on my radar, but if you're watching the YouTube video, you'll see Al crying in the background. It's been talked about 8 rookies, and we haven't even mentioned one of the 1,000 Tigers, Al. But who are the players you're interested in seeing next year? Because I figured it's not guns and rookies this year; it's guns and Tigs.
Well, just before we get onto that, I'll just throw in that Bo Allen has definitely I've penciled him in just purely on the fact that he slid down the order a little bit, obviously made the West Coast fans happy, and that'll help his SuperCoach price. And looking at these positions, he's a def mid too, so we know how valuable they can be. So there's not heaps of them around. I mean, in terms of the Richmond guys, I really defer to the draft experts, because it seemed like they really shot for the stars a bit with some like super high impact upside sort of players who may not necessarily be the ones who will just come out in round 1 and get 25 touches, but of that whole group, Dan, who do you think, and obviously a few of them have got some injury issues that they're dealing with as well, but was there anyone there surely there was plenty of them. There must be 1 or 2 that we think can play straight away?
Well, you sort of cross a few off the list. Obviously, the 3 key forwards in Fall, Armstrong, and Sims, they're going to take some time. I think Lawler's going to take some time as well, and he played a lot. I'm surprised he didn't actually get forward mid this year. Might have to chat to Freako about that one, because played a lot of time forward this year because he was injured, and I think he's never really had a pre-season before because he's played high-level cricket as well. So I think he will take a bit of time to get going, and it's a big price to pay. It's nearly 210K for a number one pick. So wouldn't be looking at him. Josh Smiley is the one for me. Average 129 SuperCoach points for the Eastern Rangers, another beast from the East, along with me and Cody Anderson there. In 2 consecutive games in the Talent League, he scored 209 points, had 34 disposals and kicked a lazy 3 goals, and then had 33 disposals and scored 150 points. So he can go big. He's got that massive frame. He's a 195 centimetre midfielder.
Patrick Cripps who can kick, is that fair?
Oh, can he kick? I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think obviously the Patrick Cripps comparisons are always going to come. He slid a bit later in the year, could have easily looked like being every bit of a number one pick about midway through the season. Dropped off a touch. I think didn't quite have the national championships that a lot were hoping he would, and it was a bit of a question of, is he just a big midfielder dominating against smaller kids? But I think he is of that Richmond bunch. He's the one you'd expect to get some midfield minutes, and he certainly has the frame to do it. So he's definitely one I'm going to be seriously considering, and he's what, pick 6? So yeah, he's still at a pretty decent price at around 170, 180K, and should get some really good opportunity for the Tigers.
Might be going head to head with Cripps in round 1 next year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when he scores 150 and the Tigers lose by 150.
Now, Dan ruled a kid out then, Thomas Sims. But if you are a Lair listener, you're going to be hearing his name a lot this year. I reckon could break a record for a bloke we've mentioned without never picking. As we know, we've got Simeon Thomas Wilson. We've got Thomas Simsy Wilson, or Simsy Thomas Wilson, however you want to do it. So we loved that. We loved it in the office when he got picked by the Tigers. So shout out to Thomas Sims, or if you know him, we'll get a big rap on the Laird this year.
I think we've buried the lead here a bit with a few of the VFL guys. And I know Al's been keeping a bit of an eye on a few of these later selections in the draft. Al, is there any of the VFL guys that really caught your attention?
Well, yeah, we know obviously anytime someone gets drafted at age 23, 24, and above, the radar goes off in SuperCoach. And we saw last year, obviously, someone like Sean Manor was a fantastic pick in the end. Sam Closey was really good as well, coming out of the Werribee VFL program, and they seem to be a bit of a footy factory down there, producing mature age draftees and potential SuperCoach picks for us. Clearly the one that stands out, I think, is Riley Bice, who Sydney took at pick 41, age 24. All the things you like to hear. That he moved to halfback this year in the VFL, and really dominated back there. He averaged 22 disposals and 101 SuperCoach playing in the VFL, and there's been just a little bit of talk already of the Swans. I think he can slot straight in there, potentially on a halfback flank at AFL level. So, and the fact that he's later in the draft, he'll be pretty cheap. Won't attract the premium of those top end guys. So yeah, I think he's definitely going to be very high on the radar. I mean, a couple of the others that got picked up. I mean, I was a bit bummed out that Richmond didn't get Sam Davidson. He's been playing in the Tigers VFL side, but the Bulldogs picked him at pick 51. I love his nickname. I think he's been doing his medical degree for 5 years, and he's been moving around the state and the country, and he just plays footy wherever his medical placement has been. So he's nicknamed the Dr. Davidson, and so I'll be running with that. But the winner this year of the Fothergill Round Mitchell Medal for sort of most most promising young player in the VFL or something. Young player. And you look at some of the names have won that. Phantom favourite Nick Newman back in the day, Kane Lambert won it, Bailey Fritsch, Luke Ryan, and then Closey won it last year. So, and then obviously came in and was a great pick for us in SuperCoach. So yeah, definitely a lot to like there. And the Richmond VFL program has actually been pretty good for us in SuperCoach as well. Sam Durham, Massimo D'Ambrosio coming out of there. Even someone like Jake Arts played a few games in my SuperCoach team a few years ago. So yeah, definitely some things to like about him too. But obviously he's a bit more of a key forward, Sam Davidson. So average 80 SuperCoach. So maybe he's got a bit more to his bow than just kicking goals. So maybe one to watch in the preseason at the Dogs. Melbourne got Aiden Johnson from Werribee's VFL side at pick 68. But I think, to me, not knowing a lot about him, he looks much more like a bit of a sort of a stay-at-home kind of forward that maybe not so much for SuperCoach. But then I've got a few other names that are training with clubs, so hoping to win spots on the list, and maybe one of these SSP.
What we like.
spots, which, has been great for us in the past. Someone like Nick Martin coming in at absolute rock bottom price and has been great picks. So another Werribee player, the Werribee captain, Dom Brew, great story where he's emailed all the AFL clubs saying, just give me a chance to come down and train and I'll show you what I can do. He's 27 and he's going to get that chance with the Doggies. So to me, he just screams a classic Bevo player like an Anthony Scott or a what's his name, McNeil.
Lockie McNeil.
Yeah, like these sort of, Bevo loves these guys, give him a chance and he does play them. So if he wins a spot on the list, I reckon he's a chance to get some games. He averaged...
Got his numbers. Oh, you got him there?
Oh, yeah, go for it, Dossie. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Reel them off.
Go for it, Dossie.
Oh, 28.6 disposals, 18 contested possessions, 10 clearances a game, 144 Supercoach points. And I'll tell you what, he's got a few fans because whenever we post some Dom Brew content on the socials, it pops off. So clearly a massive name in the VFL, respected by opponents and teammates alike. So, yeah, good luck to him. Hopefully he gets a spot on the Dogs there and he'll be straight into all of our Supercoach teams.
Dossie, I've got his last 10 scores of the VFL season.
This is phantom areas.
Here we go. We'll reel them off. Not sample under 18 numbers. This is actual numbers, VFL State League numbers. So his last 10 games, 179, 164, 208, 202, 135, 150, 114, 140, 186 in the VFL prelim and 137 in the VFL grand final. That's not sample under 18 numbers. It's not made up footy. There's not dogs running onto the oval, as Hipster says. That is legit.
And then we can have him play back pocket for Bevo if he does get a crack.
Be the sub. What can you tell us over there about Jack Watkins from North Melbourne? He's over here training with Port Adelaide at Alberton. Jace Burgoyne, when Port returned to training, said that compared him, he's a little bit like Zach Butters, the way he attacks the footy and goes after it on the small glimpse he's seen there. So if he gets a spot, is he one? Again, 102K, rock bottom price. Could we consider him?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Just having a look at his numbers, like he's gone quite well last year for North Melbourne. 25 disposals a game, 100 Supercoach points. So, and Zach Butters comparison that does get thrown around a bit, but that's it's no mean feat to be compared to him. So. And he was just a consistent ball winner at VFL level. In one game, had 38 disposals and 142 Supercoach points for North Melbourne's VFL side. So, yeah, I think he's certainly an option as well from the SSP. Just a couple more draftees who I neglected to mention before. I think Toby Travaglia is a big watch for Supercoaches. I think he's probably going to play in defence to start his career. We saw how Ross Lyon was very keen to get Darcy Wilson in to the side last year, and he played most of the season. I think that could be a similar case with Toby Travaglia, a 2-kilometre time trial king as well, and averaged some really good numbers off half back and through the midfield, 112 Supercoach points at the under 18 champs and 74 Supercoach in his 2 VFL games. So a lot to like for him. I think he's potentially def mid as well. So another good option there. Xavier Lindsay, another one. He was best on in the biggest game of the year at the under 18 championships. And he averaged 121 Supercoach points per game. He's the one who could potentially play off half back or through the midfield for the Ds. And then there's another one, I think, up forward who could come into our thinking. Often we maybe overlook guys like a Josh Rochelle or a Nick Watson playing up forward. But Isaac Kako is actually a midfielder forward in Supercoach and had some big games playing in the midfield for the Calder Cannons throughout the year. But I think he's a plug-and-play sort of forward for the Bombers. They really lack X factor in their forward 50, and I think he's one who you'd say at this stage looks a round one lock, barring injuries. So another watch there. He's a little bit more expensive, and then just a key forward from West Coast, who was one of the biggest sliders on draft night. He played 3 games of VFL footy for Essendon and averaged 90 points. That's Job Shanahan. Slid to about pick 33, so you'd think he'd probably be about 123K. We don't usually advocate for for key forwards as rookies in Supercoach, but the fact that he was able to outshine Peter Wright there at Essendon VFL later in the year means he's a bit of a watch as well.
Some good intel there from the man that knows. But I do want to ask Al a question now, moving on a little bit. Can you actually pick the 10 Richmond rookies you want to play? What does a fixture look like? Would it ruin your team? We know the buys are a big issue. Opening round is back. What's your take out there?
Well, yeah, one of the takeouts is that I think it's just a clear run for the for all those young Tigers and any other cheap ones that might come along, like maybe a Josh Gibcus if he's ready for round one. Though it sounds like they're not going to rush him at all, so we might have to wait a couple of rounds to see him, which is a little bit unfortunate. But Richmond somehow didn't qualify for opening round next year. I'm not sure what they based that on, but a little bit of a shake-up from the AFL. But as you say, probably the big takeout is that opening round is back, so we have those 4 games before the season really starts, and as we know, they won't count towards Supercoach. You'll lock your team in for round one, but we'll get to see those games in advance, which is good on the one hand, but then those teams have the early buys. So the first 4 rounds, well, round one is a full round. Everybody plays. Round 2, Gold Coast and the Giants have a bye. Round 3, I think, is the one that could be problematic, where we have Brisbane, Collingwood, Geelong and Sydney all on the bye. And round 4, Essendon and Hawthorn. So that's those early buys. So I think one lesson I learned last year was you could probably afford to carry maybe more players than we actually did. We were all scared off a bit. And as it turns out, especially when you're only playing best 18 scoring, you can afford to have 1 or 2 guys sitting on the bench. If you wanted to pick a Tom Green, for example, who misses round 2, I think you can probably cover that fairly easily. But when you've got 4 teams on the bye, it makes it a little bit harder. So then you've got your Nick Daicos types sitting there in that round 3. So that does throw a little bit of another question mark over some of those guys. And then you touched on it earlier in the middle of the season. We actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Was it 6 bye rounds? Am I counting that correctly? Or 5 it is, sorry. So we've got 1 more than we used to have. So that's, we don't like bye rounds necessarily. So getting 1 extra is not ideal, except the positive out of it is that none of those buys feature more than, there's only 4 teams on the bye each week rather than 6. So that should be a little bit easier for us to cover. You shouldn't have a team, have half your team missing.
And we've still got best 18.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be, we'll confirm all these. The rules will be with us very soon. But yeah, I'm assuming it'll be best 18. So that should make it a little bit easier. And there's no teams like last year. We had the Swans and the Giants. I think both had an early bye in the first 5, 6 rounds, and then they had another bye in round 12. So it made it almost impossible to pick, the Lockie Neal types, and meant that if someone like the Phantom could jump on at round 12 and get them for a great price and ride them home. But made it hard to pick him as starting picks, but there's no teams like that have that same sort of 2 buys in the first 12 rounds this next season. So that's a nice little bonus. And of course, the one that stands out is round 13, where you have only the 2 teams on the bye, and this year that is St Kilda and Fremantle. So and neither of those teams play in round 0. So you think they're going to be the easiest to cover out of anybody. So if you want to start with Saints or Dockers in your team, you pick as many as you like.
Haydn Young, lock him in, Dos.
Huge.
Yep.
Mid only.
Mid only. Yep. He's in.
Yeah. There's a couple of names immediately jumped out to me though for the early bye rounds. Given that we now know the opening round, Matty Roberts going to be in 99% of teams after he drops a 150 in round 1. There is actually a lot of names in that mid-price bracket, so it's going to be pretty interesting. You've got Kitty Coleman. We're going to get a look at Baz Lenker. We're going to have, as I said, Matty Roberts, a Will Day that I've been thinking about, Callum Mills,
Opening round.
All these guys are playing opening round. So we're probably going to have to, pick our poison when it comes to these mid prices. We're going to get a good look at a bunch of the popular ones anyway, come opening round, so that we can sort of know that heading into round 1. And yeah, it looks like we're going to get a bunch of rookies to pick though, and that's going to be probably the fun part, because we aren't going to have a look at a lot of the most popular ones. So we're all going in it together, I think, there.
Yeah, I think just to touch on quickly with the fixture is the AFL announcing that will be Thursday night footy for most of the season. So that locks in that really fun couple of hours on a Thursday when the teams drop and then there's a game on and you're trying to get everything sorted. But probably one of the big winners from an AFL club perspective was Essendon going to play a lot of those Thursday nights. So does that increase the appeal of someone like a Zach Merritt, who you could just lock, he's your perma VC virtually. Just watch him every Thursday night, and if he scores well, which he usually does, just lock him in and you've got your captain sorted for the weekend.
Yep, I like it.
Also, benefits the Harley Reid fullback captain, Al, with all those Sunday games that they're going to play, the Mighty Rebels.
I think we learned, rookies and mid prices, we don't have to worry about that early buy as much with the value options. We sort of still pick them. Maybe just that balance of your premiums, I think, is the key. And like I said, I think we did get a bit too worried and caught up to what it might mean last season. So plenty to talk about over the preseason, how we can handle it a bit differently.
Yeah, it's exciting times. SuperCoach is very, very close to being
Almost
officially back, isn't it? We've had our Santa Claus nice early gift of DPPs. Thanks, guys, as well for the beautiful rookie insights as well.
Yep, official rookie Bible coming very soon. If it's not up by the time you're listening, it will be up very soon to get stuck into before some more goodies maybe drop mid-December as we get to the real Christmas hour. Yeah,
absolutely. So, the team picker will be out it's probably only a few weeks' time now. So, we're really, really building up to it. So that's for SuperCoach Plus subscribers. So if you're not one of those, now's a good time to get in.
Give us a date, Al. Give us a date. What is it?
Good Christmas present too. You should, buy the mate, but your office colleague sitting next to you, whoever you want, buy them a SuperCoach Plus subscription. If you don't want to talk to your family on Christmas Day or Boxing Day, sit there and pick
me,
the team.
Grinch. I'll just be doing my team.
We like it.
With my 30 SuperCoach friends, which are my players, my rookies, all my rookies.
All right. Well, seeing as Phantom can't seem to wrap this up, make sure you follow along on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. And of course, as I said, Code Sports YouTube is where you find us for all your SuperCoach AFL goodness. Hit us up. We're going to be doing plenty more in the podcast space in the preseason. We are close to back to regular scheduled programming. We'll have plenty more content coming your way very soon. So, hit subscribe, follow wherever you're listening. Over to you, fans.
It's going to be a big year. Thanks to our friends over at Victoria for coming on and having us. A few more crossovers to come. The Lair, Manau and Dan, the official crew over there, set to be a big 2025, and we'll speak to you soon.